till 50 and we'll start in a minute max.
Team, we are live. You can start.
Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning. Welcome to the episode 202 of HyperInsights, and certainly the most exciting episode. This is Abhishek Day, and I would be the host for today. Uh, HyperInsights is a platform where we have a series of conversations with top industry leaders, and we try to learn from their vast experience and knowledge. In this tumultuous times, it is very important that we build resilient products, services, which by learning from each other. Okay, so talking about today's episode, uh, we have seen highest number of registrations and would probably see highest number of participation in the coming 1 hour. And all thanks to the huge fan following of one of the most noted leaders we have in the product and startup circle, Mr. Anuj Rathi. So and along with Anuj, we also have our own Kedar Kulkarni. He is a serial entrepreneur, has co-founded two startups, Lema Labs and HyperVerge. We are fortunate to have him here. So let's together welcome our panel members, Anuj and Kedar. And I would let Kedar do the introduction. Take it up. For just a second, for the audience, there is a poll on your screen, which I already see a lot of people participating. Please answer those. We have put together a bunch of questions which we would like to ask Anuj. And depending on the preference order, we will try to bring it up. Up to you, Kedar, now.
So Anuj, a very, very warm welcome. I think HyperVerge and Swiggy have been working together on many interesting initiatives. 1 year back, we did not think that HyperVerge would be going outside financial services and would be deploying these kind of applications. And the speed at which Swiggy and HyperVerge have been able to work together is amazing. So we would love to have Anuj quickly introduce Swiggy. It needs no introduction, neither does he need any. He needs any introduction. But we'll love to go through a few quick slides about Swiggy and Anuj, and then move to HyperVerge introduction before we open up to questions and things like that. Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Kedar, and Abhishek and the HyperVerge team. It's indeed been a pleasure working with HyperVerge offline. And collaborating for this webinar. Thanks a lot for the participants to join in on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, Anuj, I hope you are able to see the slides,
yes.
And I'll just take the audience through this quickly. Yeah, do you want to just run
yes.
through a quick introduction?
All right, so folks, Swiggy is almost 6 years old now. It's amazing to see that just within a span of almost 5.5, 6 years, what Swiggy has been able to establish. It was a very, very tiny startup started in 2014. I joined Swiggy in 2016, and at that time, all these numbers were very tiny. So at that time, we had only 5,000 restaurants operating in 7 cities. We used to do 35-minute deliveries and so on. But today, we have actually some of these numbers have grown since we work with 160,000 restaurant partners now across 650 cities. The average delivery times, we are extremely focused on the consumer. So all our partners and restaurants, while they are also our customers, but the way we look at that is us, the delivery partners, restaurant partners, all are here partnering to deliver a great customer experience. So, we have a lot of delivery partners who rely on Swiggy to earn their daily livelihood, as well as a lot of partners who are just working here in the gig economy. So they're college students. There are a lot of folks who are doing another day job, but just log in on weekends to earn a quick extra buck, etc. And of course, we have like millions of users that we keep trying to make sure that they have like the best experience. We want to be the I want it now app. So anything that they want now is the belief that we want consumers to have, that if I want anything, I should just open Swiggy. So we are going in that direction beyond food delivery as well. And our vision earlier for a majority of Swiggy's lifetime was to change the way India eats. And when we started building the delivery ecosystem, we also started realizing that there is merit to now seeing that the capabilities that we have now built can actually be used for a much larger vision of urban convenience. Now, of course, we live in India where everything is unreliable. Like government is failing us, infrastructure is bad, nobody listens to us, electrician doesn't come on time, food is like one of the problems, etc., etc. While we started with food, but I think that's just that elevating the life of urban consumers through convenience is something that really resonated with us beyond food delivery. So that's something that we are now chasing apart from food itself. About me, well, I would not like to go in like a lot of detail, but quick one. I'm VP of products at Swiggy, but not only products. I lead a bunch of other things like program management, product marketing. Program is like recently moved out, but product marketing, product operations, then revenue and growth. So some of the key things like pricing, promotions, etc., and also new initiatives. So all the new things that you see on Swiggy, in many cases we fail. In many cases we really hit the ball out of the park. Are also things that that me and my team deliver or build at and deliver at Swiggy. My journey started 10 years back in product management. As a professional, I've been working for 15 years, but I was the first product manager at Flipkart when it was a very tiny startup, and has been phenomenal now in capturing the Indian e-commerce domain. Worked with Walmart, Snapdeal, etc. So yeah, a fair bunch of marketplace, e-commerce, hyperlocal, multi-channel, etc. experience. Also B2B. So that's where HyperVerge comes in, where we kind of partner very closely nowadays.
Yeah, I think Anuj is very modest with his introduction. He is one of the most celebrated product managers in the country. And for those of you who need a funny story, I think he is also a reluctant product manager to start with. I think when he was told to think about product management, he was the first product manager at Flipkart. And I think I saw an interview where he was having a conversation with Sachin Bansal. And he agreed on the condition that he will get to do coding for 50% of his time. And I think rest is history. I don't think Anuj you ever got that 50% time to code after that.
I wasn't even able to install the code base on my computer. So.
Absolutely. So thanks a lot, Anuj, for being here. I'll give a quick intro of HyperVerge and we'll start. HyperVerge is an AI company. We started out as a student team in IIT Madras, used to represent India in robotics across different competitions in the world. And in 2014, decided to start a real company, got funded and set up an office in US, set up an office in India. We have two businesses. One business is focused on financial services, which is where KYC, fraud check, all of these technologies come in. The other business is focused on satellite and drone imagery, where we look at large amount of satellite data to find out changes that are happening in the world, sensitive changes that are happening in the world, working closely with defense, government agencies, etc. The one thing people remember HyperVerge for is the KYC, which is the flagship product. Last year, we processed 280 million KYCs in India. This is more than 20% of India's population. Working across all the challenges Anuj mentioned, across bandwidth challenges, across infrastructure challenges, across mobile devices that go from $30 all the way to an iPhone, and how to make a technology work in all of these conditions seamlessly. Some of the marquee clients of HyperVerge are Jio, Vodafone Idea, SBI Card, FE Credit, Airbus. We serve a large number of financial services clients and are now looking beyond financial services into clients such as Swiggy, where we are trying out our interesting projects. So that's a quick intro of HyperVerge. And with this, I would stop the screen share and we will maybe continue our conversation with Anuj. So I think we have promised the audience today that 50% of the time is going to be on their Q&A. And we will do our best to make sure that we represent audience in the questions that we ask. So can we have the polling results and Abhishek start with our first question?
Sure, Kedar. So as of now, the polling result says that the majority of the people want to understand more about growth mindset and other big picture questions from Anuj, followed by how Swiggy HyperVerge and lending overlap? And how does the third theme, which is coming out, is how does one think of product management during crisis look like? So I will pace it out. We'll start with the product mindset question. So Anuj, a question for you. So we have heard you speak a lot about growth mindset in multiple forums. Given the scenario where we are in, the entire country is in a lockdown, it is coming out, and there is a lot of pent up demand. So the BFSI sector is there to, explode in the coming few years, the way we see it. How do you see this? This could be one of the things. So how do you see this playing out, and how should different organizations, teams prepare for such growth or such, the pent up demand?
Well, there are a lot of questions that you rolled up into one. So let me try to restructure and talk about it step by step. Right. The first thing when you think about the growth mindset is the glass half full mindset. It's always looking at opportunities that are right out there that you need to identify and take them, rather than think about, all right, this is a crisis, this is a bad time, or be restricted with respect to your thinking, your abilities, and building products. So that's a mindset in itself, which takes you in a different direction altogether, rather than being in a fixed mindset. So that's something that I've talked about, written about a lot in the past. But in this time specifically, in COVID and even outside of COVID, I think the way to think about a growth mindset is you look at and Kedar were talking about this. You look at who are your customers, what are they thinking right now, and how do I make them feel or believe something else through the technologies or through the company that I'm building or through the offerings that I can actually go towards. And the bigger this delta becomes, that's where the biggest opportunities will lie. And that kind of is the growth mindset that I'm talking about. So for example, I just talked about Swiggy, right? We thought about changing the way India eats. And the reason why we put that in the vision is that the earlier mindset was, hey, we want to deliver food. But no, that's not what we want to do. We want to change the complete way. We want to change consumer beliefs about food, that, hey, it could be had here. If you think about, say, Hong Kong or China or Singapore, sorry. In a lot of people, now consumers believe, I don't need a kitchen at my house. Would you go for that change and then drive your roadmap around that? Or you start with, I can do food delivery and let's see these 3-4 opportunities lie here. So once you start with a big change in belief that you want to achieve, that is the mindset that works. Similar in BFSI, while I'm not like deeply involved in this sector, what are the big beliefs that you want to change with your customers? What are the big changes, not even on the B2B side, but actual end consumers as well? And once you lay out all the things that you have, then all the tiny or big product ideas all align towards that one. So that's how at least I think about that. If you want to add a little more color or a specific question, Abhishek, happy to answer.
Anuj, I have a follow-up question on this.
Yes.
So I think teams start off with some idea, right? They have some inspiration, some idea. And then there is a time when that leaps, right? That leaps into a much larger vision. So if you can take us through how this growth mindset change happened with Swiggy, right? Like where initially there would have been an idea, this is a good opportunity, and
right,
even is tentative, will this work out or not, and gets into it. And from there to knowing that you're committing to a certain big vision, right, over the next many years.
Right. So Swiggy has been one of the companies which has been fairly lucky in a way that it found early product market fit. So I kind of divide offerings and services into two. Like, are you trying to find a product market fit, or are you trying to actually, now having achieved a product market fit, how can you actually think about growth in a different way? Now, for companies which have not found product market fit, a vision is not going to like actually do anything. You have to then find a market opportunity and think about the product and see, what can I pull the market towards using my opportunity, and can I build the product towards delivering what the market needs or what the consumer needs. So pre-PMF is very, very different. But once you have achieved PMF, that's the time that, all right, I know that a few consumers already trust me. That's why they're using my products. What can I do with this capability, and how big can I think? And these two are separate. So when Swiggy started, good thing was, the reason why Swiggy's product market fit was so readily apparent, because of some of the values that we had as a company, which is we were extremely consumer focused and almost obsessed that we definitely want to deliver food in the fastest time possible. We want to make sure that consumers can trust us 100%. For example, if you look at 2014, 2015, there were 250 plus startups in food delivery, hyperlocal delivery space at that time. It was Swiggy is born amidst a competition. And the day when Swiggy raised, I think its first seed round was also the day when I think TinyAll raised like some 100 crore rupees or something like that. So armed with all of these things, we had to focus geographically on a few areas, just make sure that we are delivering for that for that user in the best way possible. So we were very deliberate about expanding, that we will not expand if we are not able to actually deliver on the promise that we set out to do. Once, and in fact, Swiggy was in only 7 cities for the first 4 years of its operations. And that took like a lot of discipline, because a lot of companies were like going overseas in India, 500, 600 cities, but we wanted to learn the ropes. We want to make sure that we've built out repeatable playbooks that we can deploy across cities. So I, for example, have worked it out with the teams that what is the standardization that we would require in Swiggy versus what is the centralization, and what is the automation that we will do, and at the same time, what are the things that we will leave that the city CEOs will kind of do. And even simple looking things that you see on the Swiggy app, for example, are a result of a lot of deliberation. Should it be centralized? Should it be standardized? Even the banner that you see on the top, for example, earlier city teams were running it, and we got into some issues where, for example, Cafe Coffee Day banner would show for 6 months, and Swiggy would mean that. But is that the experience that we want consumers to have? So once we went through that journey and built repeatable playbooks, was a time when we actually started expanding, earned the right to actually launch in 500 cities.
Right. And I think this is evident from a lot of decisions also, because I think I remember when the model was unclear. Should you have your own fleet? Should you have someone else delivering? Because all those models were open. Some of my friends who were the earliest members of Swiggy team, they remember saying, we are so obsessed with the customer that from the order to every piece, we want to ensure that it's right, so that the delightful experience happens. And I think eventually over years, the delightful experience won, right? Over all kind of other optimizations that, cost wise or whatever.
No, absolutely. It's again, there are some of the beliefs that founders have that, hey, this is a fundamental truth, and all the other problems I'll solve around this truth. And I think just a belief in owning the experience and delivering the best experience. You cannot predict what other opportunities will come in your business, what all the other things, and what are the problems that will be unsolvable, etc. So before writing that off, and that's where like a lot of startups can falter also. It takes a founders and the product leaders' judgment that which problems are solvable, and so let's continue doing that or not. So Swiggy was not bootstrapped, right? Swiggy was obviously like getting a lot of VC money as well for that one. So it's not only building, but it's to keep feeding your ambition. You also need to then make sure that you are able to raise as much capital till the time you're actually profitable. So,
Anuj, one other thing, if you could touch on, I think in all the conversations I heard, you always talk about customer beliefs, right? What's the actual belief and what's the desired belief, and the journey in between those two places. Correct. And I think that also has a lot of role in terms of growth mindset, right? As in how the growth mindset fits in there.
Correct. All right. So the way, at least I try to do it at Swiggy, and I also recommend like every company should try doing that, because that's literally the only thing that will make sure that you are putting things in the right perspective and on why you're building a certain roadmap or not. So look at, for example, your target groups. So in a way, you already have a product. Look at your core TGs and write down their personas, not segments, like literally person names. For example, if you are in a B2B segment also, write down the name of for example, in BFSI, the CFO, for example. This is the literal person that I want to solve for. So write down those 4 or 5 things. And at Swiggy, I actually write down like 12 and then say these 6 people I'm not going to solve for. They're not important. These 5 people. And those people, then I also try to write down within them, what is their context. So their context would mean, in our case, the context would mean I'm solving for Kedar. His context is Kedar ka slot or weekday, weekend, etc. What does Kedar think about getting food during lunch, dinner, etc. So 3-4 kind of context. What is his belief today about eating food? Not Swiggy. What is his actual belief? During breakfast time, Kedar would think it's 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Who will go out? Let me order it. And so we try to write down like a whole bunch of other things. We weave a story around this one. So Kedar earns X rupees. He has a wife, a couple of kids, etc., etc. So what we're really trying to do is have every product manager and designer, especially, think about that entire context, and bring yourself into the shoes of this person. And now say, will this person open Swiggy? What is the probability of him doing that, and what would we like him to actually go through? So that comes in handy when you're building the product, because you're literally weaving a story, or creating a movie from that person's point of view. And once you do it for like a bunch of personas / context, and you can cross things out. We don't want to solve for Kedar in dinner times, because we know that his phone is going to be around his kid, and everybody's going to look at that. For example, I'm just making this up. Once you solve it for your top persona cross context, you actually write down what is the desired customer belief going to be. And a lot of decisions, for example, get made around that part. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Is it going to like actually shatter your belief or something else? For example, there are tough decisions also that need to be taken. Search fee or increasing your delivery fees, etc. Things can happen when you're going to do that. But then you have to also start thinking, if I do this, will Kedar's accepted belief today will change? Or what would we like him to believe? That Swiggy is fair. Of course, like they have like a lot of shortage of delivery executives right now, but it's fair overall. And so that framework gives us the opportunity to then like get into the shoes of the real person, and then think consumer backwards on whether a particular product, service, etc. is going to be exciting or not. We usually don't invest in, for example, hey, let's do B2B because or deliveries, because we have such a nice fleet and everything, right? We could try competing with, say, a Shadowfax. I'm just making this up. But till the time we understand who is the customer that we are solving for, in this case, it's a business guy. What does he believe today? Are these services too expensive? Do I have a real need, etc., etc. So building that point of view is super important.
Right. Can you give us like a quick snapshot on how do you capture that belief? Because when I saw your interviews, you capturing those beliefs, you have pretty much pinpointed everything that is running in a person's head. So how do you get that context from a person, right? Is it through questions? Is it through user interviews? What's the most simplistic way you can tell us?
So the answer is going to be different for different kind of startups and different kind of ideas as well. So for example, when we were building Super or Swiggy Super, you have like so many target groups, and what are these target groups thinking about overall buying journey through Swiggy. So A is the ability of product managers to really understand their pain points, and not what they're saying, but what is unseen. When they're observing, where are they stopping? Where are they kind of, you see the twitch in their eyes, like, this is irritating, etc. So you think about it. Are you building a painkiller or a vitamin? So we thought about these two things. For example, Pop was a vitamin, but Swiggy Pop, but Swiggy Super was a painkiller. Like it's something that a lot of people just hated, like looking at delivery fees. Like forget paying the delivery fee. I want this concept to go away, for example. So once you're actually doing the ACBs for current customer groups, and if you're building for painkillers, some of these needs will be evident. They won't even be latent. And so what we did here was, after all this ACB, etc., then we actually started building out prototypes and then started showing it to users, and then understood that is it bringing the twinkle in their eye. And then we extrapolate also. Like imagine a person using this product for once, but imagine this person using it for a month or 3 months. How good would they feel, and what is their willingness to pay? So WTP is another concept that we use extensively. So it's not only about the value that a program would bring, but the perceived value that a user thinks that this program brings. And once you put that together, that's what, for example, give you a well-crafted product. But to come to your original question, how do you even start writing the ACVs, etc.? I think it's both an art and a science. It's about you identifying the most important customers, because literally you're not only talking about existing customers, you're also talking about future customers, and a lot of people around whom you would cast a wider net. So it's both past and future, and it's both data as well as research, as well as your intuition that comes in together. So it's a part that I think a lot of founders and product leaders have to craft and almost like maneuver themselves or the entire company into on writing the personas and writing what do they believe today. A lot of research will definitely help in guiding that, or at least writing down what the wrong things that you wrote. But it is going to be an art and a science.
Thanks, Anuj, for bringing those things up. There are definitely a lot of things to learn on this particular angle, on this particular side. One last question around this particular thing. Given that, let's talk from a product management point of view. We are always thinking of, coming up with new products, and there is a roadmap which is planned, and we want to execute on those things. And suddenly, COVID comes up. So, how in times of crisis, how should a PM manage the product roadmap, and how should we go about few long term goals versus short term, say medium term things, given COVID has opened up with so many other opportunities.
Oh, it's a very very loaded question once again, Abhishek, like last time. But let me address this one, right? So it's that question is actually three parts. The first one is I think the organizations who are thinking about building the product roadmap in a structured way are, I think, or not only the product roadmap but the product building process in a structured way are the ones which are actually able to deliver much better also during this situation. For example, at Swiggy, and I've written extensively about this one as well. So at Swiggy, we look at like 4 different areas that within a quarter or within a year, do you want to go for great customer experience, great economics and fundamentals, a lot of agility, or do you want to focus on the future? And like if so, that's a question that you can now ask Kedar. That if I were to give you 100 focus points, which buckets would you put those focus points in? And you cannot exceed 100, and you cannot be too greedy. And that's for example something that's a conversation that needs to happen ahead of the year, ahead of the quarter. And if you inherently understand how much agility you would need and so on and so forth, your product roadmap after the accepted custom release, etc., will kind of fit in nicely. For example, how many futuristic products do you want to build? How much responding to competition that you'll have? Now, during times of crisis, what happens is these buckets will change fundamentally. So you may not focus on, say, fundamentals. In your case, it may be like different buckets, but those buckets will change properly. In our case, we said that now we definitely want to either focus on things which are which were a part of the roadmap. Either they are accelerated now, so we call them as a bucket called CA, or there are new ideas that we want to do which are COVID only, or CO. So these 2 buckets were created and at Swiggy, and very quickly what we also did was like threw away the existing roadmap, re-looked at what are the consumer beliefs today, and 2 more things that happened. These are consumer beliefs today. Now, what is a prediction of the future? So my team essentially did scenario analysis on if COVID stays this way and if India is hit that way. And then within those, what would our core TGs think, and what will their newer pain points be? If you are in the containment zone, your pain points could be different. If you're going to sustainably stay at work from home, maybe now you don't need single serve meals. So it's not only the new products, for example, we launched, but actually the products that we took away. Swiggy Pop doesn't exist anymore. So at least for now, it will come back at some time. So it's again going back to like your readiness as an organization for agility, having some sort of idea buckets and so on that you know that you could accelerate now, which makes a lot more sense. That would now serve for the new desired customer beliefs, and the ones that don't make any sense right now. So, and once you do that exercise, then I think you will. It should not be any different than any other roadmap planning exercise. So don't panic. That's the first thing as a product manager. Always keep asking these fundamental questions and keep reinventing yourself. Just think about if you were fired today from this org, if you had come back, how do you build a roadmap today? And if that still takes you to, you'll go back to what do I want my consumers to believe? What are their pain points? How will I come back? It will not be very different from that part. The things that will change though is a few market opportunities that will open up like never before. With COVID, I think that's a brilliant thing that has happened. Like of course, like everybody talks about the bad things that are happening, but in a way, the world was hyper optimized anyway. Like all big businesses were built on base of a lot of these assumptions that okay, consumers like this way, this is the right kind of price. It had optimized, it had kind of stabilized over a period of time. Markets were responding to that one. All of those things were built because there are so many core assumptions that were there. With COVID, a lot of those core assumptions are changing. I'll give you an example. So one core assumption, at least the way we understood the last 10 years, and again, as a behavior thing, is that children's pester power was growing in the last 10 years. Pressure power meaning that, hey, Dad, I want to have ice cream at this time. And that would buy him an ice cream at that time. And that was the power that was growing. Parents' pressure power was coming down. Even if they say, ki beta, bahar ka khana mat khao, and you don't worry, I'll order, aap bhi khana. And that was coming down. With COVID, for example, that is reversed now. What we are seeing is parents actually telling, beta, bahar ka khana mat khao, or saying ki bahar mat jao, etc. That power has started going up once again. But children's pressure power is going down because of people who are working at home and zyada daat laga rahe. And how does that translate into food delivery, for example? So we think about those things as well. So because a whole bunch of core assumptions are changing, you will see different behaviors emerging. And the companies which will understand this one, like these facts very deeply about their customers, will be the ones who will be winning. So I think it's a fantastic time to think about newer opportunities if you understand the newer consumer beliefs and changes that are happening in their life.
Right, Anuj. I'd like to just quote one of your tweets, which I really liked and would want everyone else to know about it. The real winners will be the PMs who are able to predict the future more than the average Joe. Creatively imagine the solutions of that future and convince the company to go after that future and help the company in adopting a culture of creativity and adaptability, which I think perfectly goes right now with this current times. And it really helps in thinking how we should think about this entire coming up with those scenario analysis and coming up with those understanding of the customer mindset.
Anuj, so
100%. Yes.
we have promised our audience that 50% of the time it will be their time and their question and answer.
Yes.
So I'll open it up for questions. Anyone who has a question for Anuj, please type it out with your organization name, and we will try to cover as many of them today as possible. So you have a chat window where you can type out your questions, and we will take them. Anuj, while people do that, my one follow-up question, which I think is relevant to everyone, is, in a day filled with meetings after meetings, this review, that review, how do you take out time to do the real job, to do the job of thinking, to do the job of reflecting?
Kedar, I think, and I'll give you a contrarian answer on this part, by the way. A lot of people think meetings are a waste of time, or at least like these meetings are not really as useful. And the real job is thinking. I think though, as a leader, especially as a product leader, I find these meetings as a great place, not only to jointly problem solve, but also as a great place where, especially in these COVID times, where you are able to inspire a whole bunch of other people, and you are able to align a whole bunch of your product managers in the ways of thinking. So rather than me doing all the thinking myself, if I can use these meetings to make sure that I'm training my product people on with the right tools on product management, and let them do the thinking on their behalf, then that's a great outcome of a meeting. So that's one. Over a period of week, if I'm like 40 hours of meetings, then of course, like I will not get any time to think myself, and a lot of people are doing the thinking. So but I fundamentally don't think that they are bad, because if a lot of these people are thinking, and if my job is to make sure that I'm inspiring this creativity within their time, then I think 90% of the job is done. But every once in a while, I do take out, like, for example, days off or either time off just for creative thinking myself. Especially when I'm thinking about a long-term strategy or some deep problem solving in a particular area, like which requires that kind of time. Like, say, if I'm now starting to build gamification, if I'm starting to get into like a newer territory altogether, say super or say loyalty and so on, which without structured thinking I can't do. So with meetings, you have to balance that out. But I don't fundamentally believe that meetings are that bad, especially once again, because now FaceTime is going to be limited. And these meetings are the only time that you'll get to even converse with your teams.
Absolutely. So on the lines that you were mentioning, we have a question from Sunita, which is very relevant. I think you had mentioned about data, research, and intuition all playing a role, in the decision-making process, in writing the personas, in understanding the assumptions. So she's asking the question that what role does data science play in these new offerings, right? In this understanding these beliefs and what your new product should.
Oh, absolutely. I think data science is one. I think, by the way, okay, 2 points here. One, I think in India, I've seen a lot of people trying to become data scientists and a lot of organizations hiring them, but very rarely the right usage of data science, even for data scientists or people actually using data science for the right reasons. I think it's a combination of data science is a very, very interesting part where you have to marry human psychology along with your crazy data abilities, especially if you're working on the consumer side product, and it could be anything else as well. So it's very, very important that you take intuition and the science together, rather than only take the science part of this one. So data science is probably going to be the best friend of a product person, where you are making machines intelligent on the basis of the intuitions that you have about the future, rather than only thinking about automation. So 100%.
A second question which has come from Srinath. When the product is in early stages, how did you manage to balance between the demand and supply?
Between the demand and supply, I assume you're talking about restaurant partners and delivery partners. If you can clarify?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Look, again, like this is going to be true for all marketplaces, but especially at Swiggy. We don't think about the entire country as one unit, even entire city as one unit. We actually think about a zone and a slot as one unit. So a zone slot meaning in Koramangala during breakfast, we have to have the right balance of restaurant partners, delivery partners, and consumers. And you have to kickstart that marketplace in a way. And that's true for every zone slot. So think about when I'm going to Jaipur when it was not launched. The first thing that you have to do is get onboarded a lot of restaurants. Because without a substantial number of restaurants, users will anyway not love your product. Then go for a lot of delivery partners. You hire them and you keep on paying them even if the demand is not there. Minimum guarantees. Because once an order comes, you can't then start searching for ki ab main job deta hu kisi ko. You cannot have them then. So there was a metric that we used to basically target was how soon can we kickstart a marketplace. And then the third piece is, of course, once all of those supplies are ready, then you are ready to invite your consumers to start ordering from you. And that's how it kind of gets operationalized. And then you optimize it for a slot level and like breakfast, lunch, dinner every time. Because if you're inviting people to download the app, you cannot have or run an empty store. That's not how even a mall can run. So that's how we managed. But that's true for early stage, late stage, always.
Right.
Gopinath has a good question. It's the North Star that you use. You know, what's the North Star for product success at Swiggy? And the reasons behind it.
So there are different teams and different purposes. So I won't like to actually paint every product team's job as the same thing. If there are 4 or 5 different teams, and okay, so one product team, for example, could be working for only high impact projects with low effort, with high agility, with medium conviction on success, etc. The North Star for that team, for example, could be a labs team, could be find out as many product market fit opportunities that exist in the market, given that Swiggy is there. So they will do soul searching and kind of opportunity finding and all of those things. So their North Star is going to be different. Were you able to spot opportunities that now we want to build into the product? But for some other team, which is, for example, the growth hacking team or the growth team, for them, the North Star would be don't leave juice at the table. There are a lot of people who are coming in and every person who's coming was a potential customer. And if you're running with a conversion rate of X, why did we not serve something else? For them, the North Star is going to be different. So different teams, horses for courses. And overall, what I need to do or what the leaders will need to do is make sure that for all of these people, while they will have sub North Stars, etc., we are all tied together with a global North Star on what does Swiggy want to achieve. And that North Star is going to be, in a way, how close are we to achieving our vision of have we elevated actual urban consumers' lives through convenience. So that's how, like, at least we like to think about it, rather than just one North Star or a North Star metric. There are different purposes and under one global purpose or the vision of the company.
Okay. Thanks, Anuj. Next, going to the next question. There is a question which has come from Abhishek Kannan. When you spoke about user personas, is it feature specific? If it is, how many user personas do you create for a feature request?
So it's a very good question, by the way, because it's very easy to kind of confuse user personas. I use it in two different ways. One is the personas that are global for the company, right? And that kind of stays true, etc. for the entire thing. And the reason that persona is used, because when you're when you're putting your marketing message out, when you are actually doing advertisements, when you're writing something on a piece of paper, when you're doing not digital but branding, etc., it really works out there, because then you put yourself in the shoes of those people and say, for these people, is my overall message when Swiggy is catching them outside working or not? But those personas are rarely useful when you're building products. So then you have to be a little creative and think about, for a persona, or for a feature like Pop, or say a Swiggy Daily or a stores, etc., you will think about slightly different personas. You will start with the capability and say, to the people, for example, who are using Swiggy stores, they are in a way all are P1 consumers. They are not like the discount hunters that Swiggy also gets, right? So, but within those, which are the different kind of things? There are people who for example, order from say a big basket, or for example, people who order from some neighboring kirana store, etc., etc. Then you would actually do it for an offering level. I don't say it at a feature level, but what is your offering? That part has to be very clear. So you build personas at an offering level, but not necessarily at like each sub feature and so on, because that is just too wasteful and rarely helpful.
Understood. All right. Going to the next question. One of the things which I also relate to as a leader, when how were you able to make Swiggy so productive in March, April, when rest of us were struggling with, doing household chores? So
well, look, I think a few things that really worked for us, irrespective of whether it was COVID or not. So Swiggy is extremely obsessed about delivering customer experience. It's not a new thing that came out. And we were really pained when we were seeing like the entire cities were going down, containment zones were there, lockdowns had started, and so on. And we found this opportunity that, food deliveries are still available, but restaurants were shutting down. Like essentially 80% of restaurants got shut down and so on. And I don't think it wasn't even a CEO's war cry that sometimes like wakes up the company. It's like the company in itself the value was so imbibed that when we said that let's get together as leaders on what do we want to do, leaders, product managers, anybody who was a decision maker got together and basically started saying, okay, this is the reality. And with this new set of assumptions, what can we do here? So, and we identified the few things that we could do. We saw that, hey, India would, while food is not probably going to be open for some time, but groceries is one big opportunity. We saw, for example, one opportunity in for example, us helping our delivery executives and other folks with respect to some activities that could actually help them as a, I would not say a CSR activity, but really like create campaigns that could really help these migrant workers and so on. So we created Hope Not Hunger as a campaign at that time, and almost delivers like close to 300,000 meals every day, free of cost through like that campaign. So once we got together as leadership and then made sure that we were able to in 15 days create a roadmap which just made sense, and then we made sure that we were communicating to the entire team from top to bottom, left, right, and center. Everybody had to understand that the world had changed, and this is what we want to go after and why. I think once that conversation started to happen, then we started like essentially building different kind of teams which needed to come together. So the product leadership had to play a big part in this one. Which is okay. The reason why product leadership specifically had to play a big part is because they were anyway the ones who were connecting the entire business, supply, operations, product, design, engineering, etc. So once you started anchoring around like getting all of those people together, once the why was clear, then we were able to do a good job at, for example, people not missing out on the things that we are doing, not feeling a part of the journey of reinventing the future, or not feeling that they were not included, etc. So once we started doing that, I think the transition was smooth. It wasn't like a lot of fun to begin with because the systems were stressed. You could almost feel like the social capital being spent, that hey, just trust me, we are going to do this, etc. A lot of those things happening, but good product teams were able to like pick that out quite nicely. And that's why I think you could see like within a month and a half, we started shipping left, right, and center. Like and once we started seeing early results, then we started taking even like different bets or bigger bets. Like we started recently alcohol delivery. Now that's something that we have had our eyes on in the last almost 3 years now. But governments were just not budging. They were not either giving licenses, and they themselves had like contradictory laws and so on and so forth. But once we found that opportunity, spotted it, that's where we worked with HyperVerge also. I think literally from concept to delivery, it was like 10 days. And the entire team was working for days and nights to pull that off. So once you spot an opportunity, and then you do not leave out that market window.
Anuj, I remember a memory of this. So I get a call, I think around on a Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. And I missed that call because I was doing yoga or something. And I immediately called back and they said, we are thinking about this, calling from Swiggy, and so gave number. And I asked how many days do you want to go live? They're like, we are looking at going live in 3 days. So I was like, okay. I said, I'll come back on that conversation. And I reached out to a friend who was one of the earliest engineers at Swiggy. To understand what can we expect? What should we be prepared for? And he said, create a team that is the team of your best people and make sure they're available day and night through the next, maybe those 7 days or some time till they go live. And literally we saw that, right? Day and night. I think that entire Sunday, we thought it would be that one call. But after that, it became very clear. I think that Sunday itself, there would have been maybe 6 calls between the teams, figuring out workflows, figuring out everything. So a lot of things that you mentioned, right? Like once you are clear in your head, the ability to execute, I think I would like to point out. Clarity is one thing, but Swiggy also brought that phenomenal execution. I think the speed at which that happened, we have seen that before with some of our clients like Jio, which are known for crazy speeds of execution. But we had known this about Swiggy, and we were able to experience that about Swiggy. That was crazy.
And happy to have actually worked with HyperVerge, which like responded with as much speed, execution quality, and very proud to actually have launched alcohol. If you see, even in those markets, most competitors or other folks haven't still been able to like build anything close to the experience that Swiggy and HyperVerge have been able to create together.
And few fun facts on that for people. I think everyone was waiting. If government gives an approval, then we will go. The difference that we saw in Swiggy is we will have everything ready. And the moment we have the approval, it will be live. And I think that made a huge difference, because those few days, everywhere, if you see, people were very pleasantly surprised that they don't have to go to a wine shop, etc., to put themselves at risk at such a time where you can expect no order, right? No order in terms of how people are going, who is going, all of that. So yeah, I think that mindset was very important. We'll go to the questions again. Abhishek, if you want to go to the next one.
Yeah, so there is a question from Ankit Pandya. So basically, he's asking, is it good to design a product initially catering to 100% of the customers, or say majority cohort of 70-80% of the personas and then scale up?
I don't quite get the question. So is the question essentially, do you design for everyone or design for a few people and then scale up?
Okay, I feel that's the question he is asking.
If that is the question, then in most of the cases, the latter is true. You always design for a small cohort, and then it's a better strategy, because if you're solving for the 80% use case for everyone, actually you may find at zero usage. But if you solve for 100% for a small cohort of people, then you may solve it completely, and then you can have spillover effects for other people who may have similar kind of requirements and so on. That's at least been my mantra when you're trying to find product market fit. Find that one customer, find that exact. That's why I was talking about in personas also. Write down the name of the person. Don't say it's 30 से 40,000 kamata hoga. Write down exactly kitna kamata hai, kis bank mein jata hai, all of those things. Really think about that person when you're solving, and imagine the journey from his point of view and him or her using that product. That's a better strategy in most cases than solving for everyone. Hey, this looks like Kormangla, let me launch this product, and or this looks like Bangalore, let me launch something and hope and wish that it will work. So starting from top down is like, this is the opportunity sizing, there's a market sizing, there's a TAM, etc. You do that also when you're scaling, but not before you've found out the absolute, whether your product works itself, whether it solves any use case properly or not.
There is one Thanks, Anuj. And moving to the next question, there is one question from Krishnamurthy. Uh, it's finally a fintech question, I can say. I mean, it is talking about digital wallets. What is the thought process behind Swiggy Money?
On Swiggy Money.
Swiggy Money.
Got it. So two different kind of thought process on Swiggy Money. Swiggy Money was something that started, or we started working on that almost 1.5 years back when everybody was moving out of wallets. but the simple thought process that we had at that time was, Swiggy is an extremely high frequency use case. It's a habit building use case, and fundamentally wallets were used for a different use case altogether. But fundamentally, we thought that if there are going to be so many payments, there are going to be a few failures, and for all of these failures, actually money getting back to the bank or originally to the source, etc., is not the best customer experience. When we started asking our customers, even when we when there are angry customers whose order got cancelled because maybe the restaurant did not have something and so on, when we looked at that use case, a lot of customers said, you know what, just give me whatever currency, but mere paas hi rakh lo. I don't want to wait for 15 days for my money to come back, because anyway after a week I'm going to come and transact with you. So that's the genesis of Swiggy Money, the wallet. So we were solving it for that particular use case to make sure that our refunds, returns, all of those things really work well, and the consumer has a point of view on that part. That's one. The second one, now that you have the capability, you can use it for a whole bunch of other things, like cashbacks, a whole bunch of other smaller promotion / pricing related constructs on that part. So you start seeing a bunch of these other initiatives will come. But do we have ambitions, like for example to become the next Paytm? No, that's not something that we will go after with our digital wallet. It's here for a specific use case. It has like a lot of expansions, etc. For example, even things like pay later and so on, right? With us being such a high frequency use case, we don't need to, like, we can send a bill after a month. We don't need to keep on asking you for money every time that you do transactions. So there is a financial roadmap also that we are building. But again, all of them will come from what are the problems that our consumers are facing, which are the most important PGs, what do we want to solve for them, rather than let's build a wallet and see what happens.
This is where we have a question. Fintech is a feature, is what some people say. Some people say if you treat it like a feature, you will build a business that loses lots of money. So is Swiggy thinking about linking our food habits and what we order and what kind of food we order to lending and giving us 90-day pay later and stuff like that?
Still early days. We definitely have thought about this in the last few years as well. But it is an important area for us to start taking notice and considering now. Look, in India, I think after UPI got introduced, I think some of the problems got solved. But India is still very is a very trust deficit country. There is a reason why people, for example, want to hold the cash till the time your order comes, because they want to do the ek haath de ek haath le wala transaction. Even in commerce, I've seen that in Flipkart and Snapdeal and even at Amazon. The major reason why people use COD is not because they have a lack of payment option. The major reason is that they have a lack of trust, because a lot of consumers feel that if I make a payment right now, the company loses all motivation to deliver my right item on time. So if I verify only, then I will pay through COD, etc. So all of these things gives us the reasoning to build a financial roadmap in a certain way. Now, the top tier of customers, for example, if we are able to identify and solve for one of their major pain points, which is I don't even want to look at like what my card that I'm building. I just want these things. Just send it to me. Like, I'm not worried about this 469 today and like 522 later, etc. There are a lot of people like that. So how can you reduce or remove all the friction? But there are problems that need to be solved there, which are deep enough problems around lending, which is how do you identify this cohort of consumers? How do you make sure that you give them the right credit? How do you make sure there's no fraud that is happening, etc.? But one good thing about Swiggy is, unlike a lot of other lending companies, we actually go to the customer's address. We actually we deliver to that part. So we know for a fact that this person lives there, and this. So there's a lot of realism that comes when we are, if we are going to do lending and so on. But yes, it's a very interesting space for us to watch out.
Anuj, last question maybe, and something I think closer to everyone's heart. Bowl company, homely, these have become. This is the McDonald's of the new age. I think everyone has a favorite dish on homely. Everyone has a favorite dish on, the cloud kitchen brands that you have.
Right.
And I personally have used it so much because whether you are in Mumbai, whether you are in Bangalore, whether you are in Chennai, you get exactly the same experience.
Right.
How did we have a question on how did it start, and maybe we don't have a lot of time on this, but
Right.
if you have to give a snapshot.
As a snapshot, this started again 4 years back almost, where so the founders, like one of the founders, Nandan, uh, was a restaurateur before this one. And while there was always talk about, there's always used to be talk about, is Swiggy a food company? Is Swiggy a delivery company? What are we really, etc. And I think we had DNAs of both, like very strong logistics, customer experience backward thing, which is the marketplace, but also very strong DNA of food and food innovations in food. And how do we make sure that that consumers who come, if there is a demand for specific kind of things that is not solved by the existing marketplace of restaurants, is there an opportunity that that we can solve it for the customer? So Nandan and team, for example, spotted two opportunities at that time, and going forward, they will of course keep on spotting even more. Is that there is an opportunity for the urban, office goer who doesn't want to spend time in opening up a thali and then eating and dirtying their hands and then going to the washroom and so on. So what can we build for that TG specifically for his lunches or her lunches, where it is a wholesome, tasty, delicious meal, doesn't break the bank, but at the same time is very boardroom friendly. So you can go inside, and so that's how the genesis of TBC came in. It was a different kind of thing. There were no bowls being built at that time, and we basically started with what are the interesting things that we could do. So Nandan started that part.
So fun fact, I think all the meetings that we have, all interviews, all board meetings, all meetings, we have a protocol to just order from Bowl Company because otherwise it's a lot of headache on decision making, and
Right.
you don't know if it will get delivered in time, and you don't know if it will be consistent. So it usually
That's
used to be
that's a great example of a product market fit. We built it for that market.
how many vegetarians, how many non-vegetarians, and usually the dishes are also fixed, and it has consistently had a very good experience. Like we have investors coming from US, they come in this, they have never experienced a bowl concept because it's not so prevalent in US still,
Right.
and they have it and they're like, where is this coming from? Like so it has been a consistently good experience. So I think that brings us to 11:59. We are at the end of our time with you, Anuj, today.
Yeah.
We would love you to be a part of this forum more and more as time goes. I think you are a very structured thinker. I would like to end with 5 books that you will recommend. You read a lot, and 5 books that you will recommend to all who are here to read.
All right. And we were talking about this earlier. I almost forgotten that this question is going to come back. So yes, I think the first book that I would recommend is Thinking Fast and Slow. So that's a fantastic book. Everybody should definitely go and have a look. It's almost like a textbook. The second one we were talking about is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. It's around. So these two books go hand in hand. This 0 to 1 as well as Loon Shots, which are how do you think big, but at the same time, how do you build an org structure which lets you deliver quite big. So now we have talked about 3 books. Then the one book that has recently shaped up quite a lot in terms of the way I think about strategy is called Strategy from Outside In. A fantastic book. It's a little expensive. I think it's some 3,000 rupees or something, even on Kindle. But if you read that, it will change the way that you build strategy. I'm talking about mostly business books or leadership books here. Then I think there are a bunch of like close second, third, fourths that you kind of read and not read and so on and so forth. I would not like to recommend more things because that slot it is kind of emptied up for a whole bunch of other things, and probably you can add another book of your choice and could be a yoga book as well.
I think Peter Drucker's. If you're asking me yoga book, then I would always say Siddhartha by
Siddhartha.
Hermann Hesse. He took
Right.
20 years to write that book. He started writing it. It's a German author, and he realized he can't go beyond it. It's a man's journey of discovering true nature of life. And then he actually came to India, spent 10 years in India, learning about who am I, and then
Got
wrote
it.
the final parts of the book. So it's I think one of the
Got it.
Business book is Peter Drucker, Effective Executive.
Got it. Yeah, that's a fantastic one. So for anybody who's interested in human psychology and how do you get them to change something, Nudge is a good book as well. So that's something, I think, I forget the author's name in this one, but he won the Nobel Prize for behavioral economics for this one, for Nudge, not for his work on nudge theory and how does nudge work. So that's a great book as well.
I think we have a fabulous poll here. If you have to see, I think it's 70% of, rating you this interaction 5, rating, how useful it was 5. So thanks a lot for that. That's all you. That's all you, Anuj. Really, really happy to have you here. Would love to have more such conversations for the platform.
Certainly, and great speaking with you, Kedar and Abhishek. And thanks a lot for audience for being such a patient audience and asking such thoughtful questions. Would love to interact with you even more in the future.
Thank you, Anuj. Thank you for being part of it. You are an inspiring figure of confidence in this for all the companies and especially product and startups. Would love to host you again.